My name is Adam Paredes, and I've been attending Crossroads on and off for about 5 years and pretty faithfully have made it my home for the last 2 to 3 years. And when I think about what if there was one single moment that made me look at Crossroads as a home, it's like my own conversion experience where it didn't happen in one day, it just happened over a series of moments. And the first time I even walked in the building is one of them that was really important to me. My wife had been meeting with Pastor Linda for counseling for some time, and I was invited to one of the sessions. And I walked in there with my own preconceived notions about how I would be treated or how I would be looked at, because at the time I thought, born-again Christianity, was like a cult. And I walked in there, and having sat through the meeting for about 40 minutes, I walked out of there feeling like I was heard. I wasn't judged. There was no finger pointed at me, and it gave me a new perspective on what it meant to be a Christian. And it made me curious and wanting to know more about what it is that my wife was doing in this building beyond what I imagined. Then another moment that stands out to me that's really important to me is when my daughter first started taking ballet lessons at Bowdoin. And she was one of the first group of 4-year-olds. And her first instructor was Matthew Rushing, and then she had studied under Anika and then Miss J. And my daughter and I are alike in that we're both very shy, and we both have a wall up when we meet people, and it takes a lot to bring it down because of our shyness. And seeing her really take to the lessons and feel safe there and smiling and walking out of the lessons feeling happy and excited about dancing, and seeing her wall come down really kind of shook me in a good way. It made me feel like if she feels valued and respected and loved there, then maybe there is something to this place. And another moment that made me want to make Crossroads my home is when my wife and I were going through some really tough times, and I had left the home because of the marital issues, and I was struggling with that. And I was waiting across the street from Crossroads, picking up my wife. I think she was attending a meeting, or there was some function going on. It wasn't a Sunday service. And I saw Abel Vasquez in the street right across from McDonald's. And we made eye contact, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, I don't want to hear, what it is that he has to say. But he waved and gestured for me to come out the car, and I did. And the conversation wasn't what I expected. Again, there was no finger pointing, there was no judgment. He was just asking me how I was doing, but really genuinely interested in how I was doing, not just a formality. And I told him, and we talked for a couple minutes, and he doesn't remember this. I brought this up to him a couple months ago, and he had no recollection of it whatsoever. But in the middle of the conversation, he looked at me and he told me a man doesn't leave his home unprotected. And that stood out to me, and it cut me, but in a good way. Again, in the context of the conversation, I felt like it was said in love, and it was as if God himself was using Abel to speak to me. It was an experience that made me say, if this is Crossroads, if this conversation in the street is Crossroads, if this is the work that God is doing in the lives of the people there, and if this is how he's speaking to me, then this is something I want to be a part of, because there was no facade. There was no finger pointing, there was no judgment. And it made me curious, and it made me want more. So for the better part of 2 to 3 years, I was a sponge, soaking up every word that was spoken, participating in groups like Sacred Marriage and Celebrate Recovery. And it's in the last year that I feel like I'm full, and I just want to kind of give back and serve God and in what he shared with me. So Crossroads is my home because of how my life and the life of my family has been changed. So if these walls could talk, they would talk about repentance. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. In the walls of Crossroads, there was one of the meetings that my wife called. We met with a couple of elders in the church, another couple. And this was at the peak of my struggle and our marital struggle. And I remember in the context of the conversation that we were having with this couple, they were asking questions, and also in a loving, non-judgmental way. And I remember the woman in the couple telling me, God will not be mocked. And that was something that I never forgot. It was said in a way that wasn't meant to offend, and it did not offend. It woke me up in a way, because I never saw myself or my behaviors as mocking God. I never thought about it like that. So if these walls could talk, they would talk about repentance. They would talk about the love that brothers and sisters show each other when they confront each other in love and not in condemnation.